Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers won 142-130 for their fourth straight win. LeBron returned. Luka Doncic nearly had a 50-point triple-double, scored 51 points, his season high and also his high as a Laker. And most importantly of all, the Lakers moved from number 4 in the West to number 3 in the West. Could be temporary depending on how things shake out over the next few days. But after having conversations as recently as 3 weeks ago about is this team going to be having to fend off Phoenix for the number 6 seed, the Lakers are now in number 3 and would be hosting a first round series right now. So things are going great for the Lakers right now. The vibes are high. The team is rolling. They've won 7 of 8 overall. They are just in a great groove. They are peaking at the right time, ascending at the right time. I wouldn't even say peaking because I think this team could be even better on both sides of the ball. Ascending at the right time, I think, is the correct term there. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Pinty asked if I forgot to shave. Your boy could grow a little stubble here. It's been a day. I don't have a beard, so I gotta sometimes let the stubble show. I just gotta rock it a little. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Let's get into the game. So Buha's big picture. I mean, there's a lot to touch on from tonight's game, but I want to go macro with this big picture takeaway, and it's the return of the king. So as you all know, much has been made of LeBron's recent absence and the Lakers' success in his absence. And there's been a lot of talk about the Lakers' record without LeBron, the record specifically with Luka and Austin without LeBron, some of the on-off data. And there's just been a lot of discourse, we will say, about LeBron and his fit and whether LA is better with him or better without him. And I don't want to relitigate that. We've already discussed it a little bit more than I would like to. But tonight, LeBron returns. He was questionable going into the game, went through his pregame warm-up and was a game-time decision. Ultimately, LA cleared him. And I thought he fit in really well tonight. It was a deliberately slow start on his part. JJ mentioned this after the game, that the first 4 plays, the first 4 sets that they ran for LeBron, he didn't even look at the basket. And I thought he came in and basically just amplified what the Lakers were doing. Of course, there was a couple turnovers in the first half. I think a few rough defensive moments of getting beat off the dribble or maybe not rotating or whatnot. But the first half, it was a quiet first half, and he was not very involved offensively, was much more in deferential mode until right there at the end of the first half when I believe he scored 5 points in quick succession. But then after that, opens up the second half with a cut. Luka hits him for the dunk. Then he gets a steal that leads to a Lakers transition opportunity. And I think LeBron assimilated well into what the Lakers were doing. And, one of the open-ended questions that we had was like DeAndre Ayton had looked much better with LeBron out of the lineup. Austin had looked better with LeBron out of the lineup. Could these things continue with LeBron returning? And the answer was yes. And LeBron did not ruin the Lakers. He did not make them a worse basketball team. I think he fit in admirably with what they were trying to do. And tonight was an interesting game just because the Lakers were so shorthanded. So no Marcus Smart, which changed the starting group. JJ tried to rage bait me with the OG starters, but to his credit, it worked for one evening. No Jackson Hayes, no Maxi Kleber. We'll be touching on some of the injury stuff in one of the takeaways. But So they go with the OG starters, which is a group that coming into tonight had a minus 23.3 net rating in 101 minutes. They were minus 43 overall on the season. So this had been the starting group that had just not worked. They even played, remember a month ago, a shift against the Nets. They immediately give up a 7-0 run in less than 2 minutes and are ran off the floor by the lowly Brooklyn Nets. And so it's not just been the good teams, the Houstons, the San Antonios, some of the best teams that have taken it to that group. It's also the Nets. So the Lakers had some things going against them in terms of just who was out and how much that was going to fall on this group having to play a certain amount and play a certain amount of defense. But I really like the offense with that group. I think that's the best because part of that minus 23 net rating was they had a 95 offensive rating with that group and a 118 defensive rating with that group. Both of those numbers are terrible. I mean, the offensive one is like mind meltingly bad. It's just like by far worse than the NBA. And then the 118 defensive rating is down there for some of LA's like earlier season numbers when they were a bottom 5, bottom 3 defense. So the group has struggled just on both ends of the floor. But tonight they got it going offensively, and I really liked how they used LeBron. They used him more as a screener and a roller and more of a cutter and as more of a cutter and more of a finisher. So we saw like at times recently with that starting group or with the starting group, not with that particular starting group because it hasn't been playing recently. LeBron would be more of the secondary playmaker, secondary facilitator, secondary usage guy. But tonight that changed. It was Austin. The Lakers, of course, like Luka has the keys, but when Luka doesn't have the keys, it had more recently been LeBron who had about like a 5% usage rate higher than Austin since Austin had returned from injury. LeBron had been more the second guy, but tonight it was the inverse where Austin was more the second guy. LeBron took a back seat offensively and ended up only taking 13 shots. He was tied for third on the team with DeAndre Ayton. I guess, and if you factor in free throws, they both attempted 6 free throws. So from a scoring opportunity perspective, they were both right there as the number 3 option. But I liked the way that they used LeBron more. They leveraged his passing out of the post and his passing side to side. And he still had his 7 assists, which was tied for second on the team with Austin behind Luka's 9. And I also thought that they shifted things with the bench groups where you saw those LeBron Austin bench groups, which had been flowing more through LeBron, were actually now flowing through Austin. And it was more Austin being the primary ball handler, running the show, LeBron screening for him. They have their great 2-man chemistry that they've built through the years. But I just thought LeBron came in and was very additive tonight. The jumper has still not fully returned, 0 for 2 on threes, though I believe one of those was a grenade at some point in the fourth. But 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I thought the defense in the second half was much better than the defense in the first half. Now, there are some limitations of if you're playing the OG starters together, they're just never going to be a good defensive lineup. And tonight they were not a good defensive lineup. They won their minutes decisively because of the offense, and just Luka had his Laker high with 51, one of his best games as a Laker, one of his best games of the season easily. Austin was cooking, had a really efficient game with 13 of 20, 13 of 20 shooting. DA was cooking 10 to 13 shooting. Really, the whole starting lineup was basically 60+% shooting. So it was also the most points. The Lakers starters scored 137 of their 142 points tonight. The bench was kind of meh overall. And it was the most points scored by a starting lineup since, I believe, 2006. So you had to go back 20 years to get this type of production from a starting group collectively. So a lot of guys were involved tonight. All 5 starters scored in double figures. All 5 starters had at least 10 field goal attempts. I thought there was a really nice rhythm and flow offensively. And I think they have some things they have to clean up defensively. They really missed Marcus Smart tonight. I cannot state that enough. Like the Marcus absence plus having to play small for either Drew Timmy at the 5 or going with Vando at the 5. It's just like Jackson and Maxey, I think bring. Jackson's gotten much better with his verticality. JJ said the other day that Jackson is the best verticality player on the team from a defensive verticality perspective. We know about Maxey, his switchability, and he's when Maxey's on, he's still an effective defender. So I think they really missed those couple guys, plus Marcus. Vando only played 10 minutes. So you combine that in like that concoction of 3 of your better, I think your best rotation defender in Marcus, but then a couple of your other bigger players are out. Vando's not really playing much. You're going to get a more offensive minded night from LA. So certainly like there's some things they have to clean up moving forward. But I thought LeBron fit in well, and this to me should be the blueprint moving forward. I've been making this case recently. I think in terms of comparing LeBron versus Austin, if you just look at their efficiency, you look at their shooting all around the floor, Austin has just been the more efficient and effective scorer this year. So that's not, and again, that's not like to denigrate LeBron or what he's done or what he still can do if he's maybe empowered in a certain context. Like we saw when Austin was out, LeBron was able to be an effective number 2 next to Luka. And there's been nights when LeBron has even been the number 1 this season. So like he's still capable of doing more than being in a number 3 role. I want to be clear about that. At the same time, I think we've seen now, like when Austin is cooking, this offense is at a different level. I believe after tonight, the Lakers are now 19-3 in the 22 games. Austin has scored 20 or more points. So, and that's not like it's not the same record with, I think with LeBron scoring 20, it's like 18-11. And then I don't know Luka's off the top of my head, but like point being like there's a clear correlation there of when Austin is on and Austin is having an effective night, the Lakers offense and just overall success is at a certain level that I think they'd like to replicate as frequently as possible. So I don't know if this is going to be the pecking order, the hierarchy for the foreseeable future, but I think LeBron tonight stepped into what had been working and he helped amplify that with he had a couple of offensive rebounds, was tied for second on the team in offensive rebounds. So like third on the team in rebounds, tied for second in assists, was fourth on the team in scoring, did a little bit of everything tonight. And then overall, what was tied for second in defensive playmaking. Luka had his 3 steals and a block, but then LeBron had his 2 steals and a block to go along with Luke Kennard, actually with 2 steals and a block tonight. So some nice defensive playmaking from LA. In that regard, there was not a lot to like defensively. I will certainly touch on that a little bit later, but I just wanted to state that the sky is not falling. LeBron James did not turn this group into a lottery team. Was the fit? Is there still things they have to figure out? Yes. This did not solve all of the issues that this group has had in terms of making the big 3 click together. I still think they have to prove they can do it against the best teams in the league. They've yet to beat an above 600 win percentage team with the big 3. So I think Saturday against Denver, that's a huge test. And they got a couple more tests against Houston next week. They play Detroit on that road trip. They got a 6-game road trip coming up. So there'll be more opportunity to dissect the fit with the big 3, each player's role, and the best lineups and rotation and all that. Like this was a Chicago team that is effectively tanking. They're not very good. And so I don't want to draw for me, it was more the process tonight rather than the results in terms of I wanted to see how LeBron was going to approach tonight. I wanted to see how the Lakers were going to approach tonight in terms of the lineups and the usage and just sort of the spots on the floor. And again, I thought there was a notable shift into him being more of an off-ball player. There was fewer dribbles, fewer post-ups with him. It was a lot more screening, rolling, cutting, swinging the ball. And if there were scoring opportunities, it was a lot of transition or him as a roller, him as a cutter, etc. So I think this should be the ideal hierarchy and blueprint moving forward. We'll see if the Lakers can keep this going. And I also think it depends on the matchups, right? Because I don't think things have to be black and white in terms of like, should Austin be taking 7 more shots than LeBron every night? I think it depends on the context. Austin didn't get to the free throw line tonight. So like that's another factor with him that, maybe would have affected his overall shot attempts if a couple of those were like fouls. But I think to me, the progress that I saw tonight was like, this was their second highest point total of the season, tied for their second highest. Their season high is 143. This is the second time they scored 142. And I just thought the ball movement tonight, like 32 assists on 55 makes, they had a magnet ball. The Bulls certainly had a magnet ball. There was an element of that as well, where this is one of the Lakers' best shooting and offensive performances of the season. But I don't think that was random. I thought that, again, part of it, Bulls and their defense or lack thereof. And I mean, they just had no one to guard Luka, no one to guard Austin, no one to guard LeBron. Like there was certainly an element of that, right? But I just want to state that I thought from a process perspective, the ball movement, there was not a lot of isolation tonight, not a lot of stickiness offensively. And I just really liked the process from the offense. And really, this has been something that's been building. The Lakers now have 60, I think they've scored 213 points, if my math, no, excuse me, 217 points over the past 6 quarters, which is like a little over 36 points per quarter. So the offense has been in like the second half of the Minnesota game, they exploded offensively. That continued into tonight's game. And I think that's going to be really important going into Saturday's matchup with Denver, a Denver team that just beat Houston, blew them out in Denver, then won into San Antonio tonight. No Wemby, but had a big comeback. They were down 16 at the half, made a big second half comeback and beat San Antonio. So now they've racked up. They had a close loss to OKC. They just blew out Houston. They just beat San Antonio on the second out of a back-to-back in San Antonio. Denver's playing better. Jokic is playing great. Their starters are playing great. And so like Denver's is gaining momentum. They just beat the Lakers, and that's going to be a huge matchup on Saturday. That will determine the tiebreaker between those two teams. Then in terms of notable performers, but I already touched on LeBron, so I think most of that I will leave with the first segment. But we have to touch on Luka Doncic. 51 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 17 of 31 shooting, 9 of 14 on threes. That's his Laker high on threes, also ties his career high on threes, 8 for 9 at the free throw line. 1 turnover. So to have that type of usage and that type of efficiency and only have 1 turnover on top of that, plus 3 steals and a block, continue to make plays defensively. If not for Rui missing a wide open corner 3, he would have had a 50-point triple-double. But Luka is playing his best basketball of the season right now. I'm going to touch a little bit more on it in one of my takeaways, but JJ said after the game that right now Luka's playing as well as anyone in the NBA, and he doesn't think it's being talked about enough. And JJ wants to talk about it and keep reminding people how great Luka is and how great he's been recently. And after a tough stretch where there was a lot, I mean, there's still been people taking shots at him in the media. I don't think it's going to go away. And I'm sure someone will find something tomorrow to complain about Luka's performance. They'll find something. I don't know what it will be. I can't tell you because I don't think there's anything to criticize off of tonight. Someone will say he was shooting too much, even though he shot 17 for 31. I really don't know, but he's been taking the bullets lately. He's been taking the barbs for weeks from the media, and I think the peak of that was that stretch where the Lakers lost to Boston and Orlando and Phoenix. That was one of the low points of the season. That was one of the points where it felt like the Lakers season died 3 times in a row because it was such a disappointing loss to Boston. It was a big moment with the Pat Riley statue and just like another test against a really good team. Then the Orlando crunch time situation. Then the Phoenix loss with no Booker or Brooks. It just really disappointing stretch. But I would like since then, I think, and that wasn't all on him to be clear, but like that was kind of like the peak of people poking at him or criticizing him. he's been remarkable. Looking at his past 4 games, this is absurd, but 40 points per game, 9.5 rebounds, nearly 7.5 assists, 2.5 steals, 1 block, 50.5% shooting, 45% on threes, 86% on free throws. He's been in an incredible groove the last few games, and really coming out of the All-Star break, he's been playing, I think, MVP level basketball. So masterclass from Luka tonight. First 50-point game again as a Laker, 8th 50-point game of his career. First 50-point game, of course, by all that, like, of the season. So he had a couple of high 40-point games, finally broke through. And I'm going to say it again, if not for Rui. I mean, Luka was joking after the game that Rui intentionally missed that wide open left corner 3 to screw with his triple-double. But just a masterful performance. And we have to mention, I'd be remiss if I did not mention Matas Buzelis and him poking the bear. He poked Luka. Luka said after the game he would not divulge what Matas told him, but he said that he was shocked by it. It was just like trash talk out of nowhere. They had not been having a back and forth. They had not been like chirping and sort of like escalating to a certain point. He said it was just like out of the blue, Buzelis just went at him and said something to him that he said if he had said in front of a ref, he would have immediately gotten a technical foul. Again, he wouldn't say what it was, but Buzelis poked the bear, and the bear ate the bulls. Because Luka had 12 in the first quarter, but on 4 for 11 shooting. So if we look at the rest of the game, he went 13 for 20 and had 39 points, because the second quarter was when that started. And Buzelis said after the game he shouldn't have talked to Luka, and his lesson was he's not going to talk to Luka again. So maybe the Lakers need to bring face printouts, cardboard cutouts of Buzelis to every game. And if Luka is in a stretch, maybe he's missed a couple shots in a row, just show him a picture of Buzelis and get him going, because that was something. Like, and every time, he was doing the chirping sound at him and just unleashed the beast and would not stop trash talking Buzelis. I had a great vantage point of that, and he just torched him. And again, a masterful performance from Luka. Austin, 30 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 13 to 20 shooting, 4 for 7 on threes. Didn't get to the free throw line. Again, I think a couple of those times he drew some contact and probably could have gone there. Had a steal, 3 turnovers. I think Austin, like, he had been the one that I was most intrigued to see just how he would adapt to LeBron. And I think, especially coming off of his injury, he had been a bit deferential at points. Austin was Austin tonight, and Austin was the same Austin we saw against New York, the same Austin we saw against Minnesota, the same Austin we saw in the second half against Indiana. And Austin putting together this stretch here of 3.5 games like this and looking like himself. First time coming off the last 2 games, first time he had scored 20 plus consecutively since December. Now, first time, same thing, going back to early, like that late November, early December stretch. First time he scored 3 straight with 20 plus or a couple 20 plus and 1 30 plus. So Austin still got his usage tonight, still got his assists tonight. Also had some big plays there early in the fourth quarter as Chicago was starting to make a run. He 2 baskets immediately, and they're forced to call an early timeout. So Austin was Austin tonight, and he's been playing some incredible basketball lately. And as I mentioned earlier, like, the Lakers are now 19-3 when he scores 20 plus. They need this to continue. They need to bottle this up. And it's on Austin. He's got to play with this assertiveness and not be deferential to guys. And I think there were several plays tonight for me where he would have a driving lane and maybe someone would be open, but Austin was also open. And I think more recently he would kick that out or reset or swing it, whatever. And he was like, nah, I'm getting downhill. I'm getting into my bag. I'm rising up for a little floater. I'm getting to the rim. And then if they if they start to adjust and adapt and cut that off, then I'm going to spray the ball back out. So I think there's always a fine line there with the balance of the shot pass decision making. But I think it's like, especially when you're having such an efficient night of 13 for 20, it's okay sometimes to take a good shot instead of a great shot if you're cooking. And that's, I thought, like, Austin found the proper balance tonight. DeAndre, 8 and 23 points and 10 rebounds, continued his recent strong play offensively. 6 offensive rebounds tonight, did a ton of damage in the paint, had several tip dunk attempts and several nice finishes in the paint, including an emphatic dunk through traffic that sort of Shaq-like. I don't use that term lightly, but like that there was like a shade of Shaq in that. I think, 10 to 13, which is basically all at the rim, though he did have a nice little floater out of the pick and roll, more in the pocket. He's just been playing really good basketball. I think, to me, there was a little bit of defensive slippage tonight compared to the 2 previous games. I don't know if that was more of an opponent. I mean, Chicago is young, athletic, quick. They play with a certain amount of speed. They also have a stretch big in Jalen Smith. DeAndre has struggled against stretch bigs, particularly because the Lakers often have him in a drop, and he prefers the deeper drop. So closing out to stretch bigs can be a challenge for him. But I thought there were several times they scored on him off of line drives, and he was just either a little bit too late or not in position to protect the rim or contest properly. So if I had to nitpick something, that would be like the one thing is I thought he was much better defensively against New York and Minnesota. But I mean, it's like he's been carrying the Lakers offense for stretches of these last few games in a meaningful way. And it's been, when the Lakers are missing, he's doing the dirty work and cleaning up in the paint. So he's just like, this is the version of DeAndre they need. I wonder how much of this, if any of it at all, has just been influenced, like especially the last couple of games, there's no other center option. So he's getting a longer leash, and he also knows that sort of maybe there's an element of him playing a little freer because he knows that regardless of if he makes a mistake, they're not going to pull him out and play like 35 minutes of small ball. So that there's a certain assurance of playing time and touches recently that I think has brought out the best of him. But he talked about it after the game that he said like he felt he needed to catch up to the rest of the group and that he was not on the same page as the group, and he finally did that. So I think like his arrow is trending up in the right direction. We have not seen him against Denver yet. He got injured in the first half in the first meeting. He got injured in the first quarter in the second meeting. I thought Jokic got the better of him in that first shift pretty decisively. So this will be a big test, especially, I could touch on it now, but like Jackson Hayes is, JJ just said he got imaging on his back and there's no timetable right now for his return. Jackson could be out for however long. Maxey, JJ said, is going to be out for a bit here, which, I mean, I like to joke that like Lakers day to day is like week to week. Saying that Maxey's out a bit, like I mean, that could be 3. I did joke and say 3 years. That could be a long time. I don't know how long Maxey's going to be out with this back injury. So the Lakers are down to like right now one playable center. Drew Timme, he did have a nice shift against Denver, a nice couple shifts against Denver earlier in the season. I don't know if he's ready yet, especially against Jokic, but he might just have to get thrown into the fire on Saturday. But Lakers are really going to need a big performance from DA. And he did it against Towns. He did it against Gobert. He did it tonight against the Bulls' porous front line. But that's the big test on Saturday. Already mentioned LeBron. Then Rui, 15 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 6 for 10 shooting, 3 for 5 on threes. Missed the 3 to get Luka his triple-double. I thought Rui did a really nice job filling in the gaps offensively. Like, he took the 5th most shots among the starting group. So, I mean, that's the downside to starting Rui with that group is he's clearly the 5th option with that group. And we've talked about how that's marginalized him. I think part of the Lakers' defensive struggles came down to if you're putting Rui as your point of attack guy on Josh Giddey, there's just a limitation there. And I thought Rui competed on the defensive end, but yeah, I mean, Rui as the low man, Rui as a helper, Rui as a point of attack guy, it's not good. And that's, I think, been my biggest issue with the OG starters is it forces Rui to be in a position where he's like some sort of stopper that he just isn't, or at least isn't against perimeter guys. Like, I think I continue to beat the drum that he's best at the 4, but he's also best defending big men and more so in like a post defense role where it's just like battle this dude for position. I think Rui's very good at like, I think it's even part of his shot. It's like when you're open, shoot. If you're not open, take a dribble or two into a shot. Like if you give him very specific directions, I think he could go out and execute those at a high level. But I don't love the perimeter defense. But that was just the limitation the Lakers had going tonight. Jake LaRavia, another night he struggled offensively, 0 for 3, 0 for 2 on threes. Had a couple offensive rebounds. And was, I think, the only bench player who really made an impact tonight. I thought his defense and his rebounding and his energy provided something, especially as sometimes in for Rui, sometimes in for LeBron, like fitting in with the starting group. So I think he continues to do more. Like, people will focus on the scoring and the shooting struggles. I think if you want to hold him to a certain standard, that's totally fine. And I hold him to a certain, like, he has to be better offensively. I also think he's doing a bunch of little things that don't show up in the box score, but also do show up in the box score with a block tonight and 3 assists. Like, he's just a nice connecting piece where he gets you extra possessions. He doesn't really take much off the table other than when he's missing open threes or layups, but like solid bench defender. I think Jake continues to be an additive player overall. Luke Kennard had a rare off night. I think this was his worst game as a Laker. 1 for 7 from the floor, 1 for 5 on threes, had some good looks he just didn't connect on. I thought defensively they also were able to attack him with some of their, with Trey Jones and Rob Dillingham and some of these guys beating him off the dribble and getting to the rim. But he's stable, he's steady, he's consistent. I'm not overreacting to tonight's game. Drew Timme had a couple of short shifts in there, and then Vando only played 10 minutes off the bench. And just even on a night like tonight, I thought there'd be more Vando. Just he got the Yuki side of it. Lakers didn't even really entertain going to him in the post and trying to post him up, despite having like almost around a foot height difference there. Yeah, so I mean, if he's not going to play tonight more than 10 minutes when the Lakers are this depleted and need defense, I mean, he, to me, clearly is the 10th guy in the rotation right now and like might not be playing in the playoffs. Then stat of the night. I think the low-hanging fruit with stat of the night is Luka's 51, which again, season high, first 50-point game as a Laker, 8th 50-point game in the NBA. But I'm going to go with a plus 18 in 14 minutes for the OG starters. Coming into tonight, again, I mentioned it, they were minus 43 in 101 minutes. After tonight, they are now minus 25 in 115 minutes. So you see how one game can dramatically swing some of these numbers. I mean, still been a clear negative on the season, and it's going to take some time for them to potentially get into the positive if they ever do. But this was, to me, the best they've looked all season together, more so in the offensive end. Again, there was not a lot I liked defensively. The third quarter, there's some nice pockets of the third quarter defensively, but gotta give credit where credit's due. JJ went back to that group despite all of the numbers and the data. I would not have started them. I would have gone in a different direction just because of the sample size up to this point and them often losing their stints by like double figures or close to double figures. But JJ went to it and it worked tonight. And we'll see. I mean, if I assume Marcus is going to be back on Saturday. If he's not, I think they're going to go back to this lineup and they're going to have a real test against a Denver team that can slice them up and can also defend better than Chicago can. Then takeaway number 1 is Luka is playing as well as anyone in the NBA. So it's a point I made earlier in the show. It's a point that JJ Redick made after the game. And I think this is something that's really important to talk about right now because there's been a lot of negativity with Luka lately. But these last few games, and really I think coming out of the All-Star break, he's just been at a different level. So again, last 4 games, 40 points, 9.5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2.5 steals, a block, nearly 51% shooting, 45% on threes, 86% at the line. And the Lakers are 4-0. But I wanted to bring up the MVP discussion because I think I said this at the time, and I think this was the consensus opinion, and this player is the heavy favorite right now. But like it did feel like Shea had his MVP moment, his walk-off against Denver, where you have those have been the top 2 candidates all season. And for them to have that duel at the end, to be going shot for shot, both making big shots, big plays, it's a close game. And then Shea has a walk-off, Denver responds, then he has another walk-off, and ultimately that's the end of the game. It felt like one of those moments where Shea grabbed the MVP award. And I mean, he's been the favorite for basically the entirety of the season. You see the ESPN straw poll, he's a heavy favorite there. You see the betting and predictive markets, he's a heavy favorite there, even more so coming off that game. So it does feel like right now this is Shea's award to lose. Jokic is still number 1 in basically every advanced metric, still number 1 in on-off, at least among the MVP candidates. So like he has his statistical case in terms of him being the best player in the world, or Denver really depending on him. However, I think Luka, like he has to be in this conversation, and he cannot be behind the tier. I listen to a bunch of national pods. I see a bunch of tweets, and there's all this talk about Wemby and Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham and Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. And like all those guys are great. And I think especially Wemby. I think Wemby is the guy in all this where it's like, okay, the Spurs are number 2 in the West. They're like a real title contender. There's a real difference when he's on and off the floor on both sides of the ball, and he's having a great season. But Luka needs to be at. I think not only should he be in that mix, I think he should be at the top of the mix and in this MVP conversation more than he has been up to this point. And so I wanted to look at some of the numbers here quickly. Post All-Star break, Luka's averaging 33 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 48% shooting, 44% on threes, on 11 attempts per game, 75% at the line on 8 attempts per game. Lakers are, plus minus is a little complicated in terms of like the average plus minus, but their average plus minus for Luka is 9.1. We could get into the net rating stuff in a second. Then with Shea, he's averaging 32 a game, 5 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. So they're very similar there. Luka's scoring a little bit more, averaging 3 more rebounds. And then Shea shooting 56%, 32% on threes, 93% at the line on 9 attempts. So Shea more efficient by almost 8% from the floor, 17% at the free throw line, which is a big difference. But then Luka's shooting 11% better than him on threes. But they're comparable there. And then the plus minus +9 for Shea. And then you get to Jokic, 29 a game, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals and a block. So actually all 3 guys are basically averaging 2 steals and a block. Jokic 53% shooting, 30% on threes, 83% at the line on 8 attempts per game. So they have Luka in terms of field goal percentage, but he has them in terms of 3-point percentage and volume. And then they both have him slight edge in free throw attempts and free throw percentage. But like it's close. And then you get to some of the advanced stuff. And I have it here. Luka, 59% effective field goal percentage, 62.3% on true shooting percentage. Shea, 58.8. So Luka's actually got the edge there. But then 66.4 true shooting. Luka's got a notable edge there. Effective field goal percentage, Jokic at 56.7. So he's actually behind those two by a couple percent, but then true shooting 62.5, like the slightest of edges over Luka. But point being, it's comparable. He's right there with those guys. And I know that's not the full season snapshot. If you look at the full season efficiency, those guys are both ahead of him in basically every advanced metric. They're ahead of him in effective field goal percentage, true shooting, a lot of the efficiency stuff. They're ahead of him in on-off, which, it's, if you go by record, obviously the Lakers have been worse than those two teams have been. But if you go by actual on-off, like in games, those guys have been more impactful in that way. But I just think Luka's been playing right there at the same level as those guys coming out of the All-Star break. And you could even expand this back into January. I mean, he won Player of the Month in January in the same month. I mean, those guys are in the same conference as him, right? So he was deemed better than them in January. I just think he needs to be more in this conversation. I don't think he's going to win it. I think realistically, third is probably his ceiling. I think Shea's going to win it, and then I think Jokic has had a lead to the point that I don't really see anybody catching him, and he just puts up these insane numbers that just no one touches him in efficiency and the advanced metrics. But maybe Luka could get second. I think he needs to be more in this conversation because people are talking about him like he's 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th in this conversation. And I just think that's ridiculous. So wanted to acknowledge just how great he's been playing. And I think right there with Shea and Jokic, and we'll see like another opportunity. I think the biggest thing for Luka from here on out is going to be LA, at a lot of the discourse. Denver's been ahead of LA for a lot of the season. Lakers have passed the Nuggets, and they're right now third in the West. And if they could beat Denver on Saturday and widen that gap plus get the tiebreaker, I think that has to be factored in here when we talk about where Luka's at. And if the Lakers keep winning, they close the season strong. Luka's the 3 seed. He's putting up the numbers he's putting up. I think he will get more of a look than he has been up to this point. But I still think it's Shea's to, like, barring Shea, I think being ineligible, he's just been, I think Shea's going to win. Takeaway number 2 is the blemish on the night for me. And the blemish on the night for me was defensive regression. I thought the Lakers reverted to a lot of their bad habits tonight. And there were elements of this game that reminded me of the first half of the season when the Lakers were a bottom 5 to 10 defense, depending on the pocket of the season you want to isolate. 130 points to a Bulls team that, like, yes, they're young, they're feisty, they play hard, they play fast, and I think fast teams can attack the Lakers, well, and we've seen that. Not even like this year's team, like just go back like multiple years. It feels like if you have a certain amount of pace, you can attack the Lakers, put them on their heels. But 130 points is the 7th most, tied for the 7th most the Lakers have allowed. And I think there was like the Bulls had already scored more points than the Knicks had through 3 quarters than the Knicks scored in the entirety of the game on Sunday. And I just thought this was tonight a real step back defensively. JJ was asked about the defense post game and said that he had nothing positive to say. And he was like, I wish I had something positive to say about our defense tonight. There was nothing that he was happy with defensively. I did mention earlier, like, no Marcus. Marcus has been a huge piece for LA defensively. He sets the tone with his energy, his effort. He's the primary point of attack guy. Like tonight, he probably would have been the guy on Giddey and maybe spent some time on Buzelis as well. So the Lakers really missed him. No Jackson, no Maxey, and then Vando's in a smaller role. It's like, naturally, if you're playing more offensive-minded guys, you're going to suffer defensively. But I thought there were stretches, like the first half especially, but also the fourth quarter as Chicago made like a little bit of a run where it was just nobody had interest in point of attack defense. And then if there was a little bit of interest, or even if there wasn't, and someone just like blew by them, the rotations were late, the help was late, the communication was late, and the Bulls shot the ball really well. They had a magnet ball at times. It felt like, there's a stretch where Luka scored 10 straight, and the Bulls scored after every basket that Luka had, and it was like Luka's going off, but it doesn't matter because the Lakers just aren't getting stops. And tonight, I just think was like, I don't want to make too much of it because I think on some level, this was like you get up for the Knicks game, you get up for the Minnesota game. There's like a natural human element of a little bit of a letdown when you play a lesser opponent. This is a common thing in the NBA. You play a lesser opponent, you maybe play down to the level of your competition. I think the Lakers did that tonight defensively. And they've been great against sub 500 teams. They've been the third best team in the West against sub 500 teams. So this has not been like a season long issue for them in terms of like not taking it seriously against lesser teams. There's some context within that because they've won a lot of those games. It's been a lot of ugly wins, a lot of closer wins. That's why their crunch time record is partly what it is. But still, I thought like I would have liked to have seen a little bit more seriousness. A little like I think if they came out with the same intentionality that they came out against the Warriors or against the Kings, this is a 30-point blow. And we did see like pockets of that with the first quarter, the third quarter. A little bit of the fourth quarter to regain control of the game. But I just thought partly due to being shorthanded, partly due to the opponent, and partly due to just energy conservation, it felt more like they kind of did just enough to win this game rather than trying to continue some of the habits that they've been working on building. And I think they had a 128 defensive rating tonight, which is just absolutely terrible. Like it was just not a good defensive performance. And in my opinion, their worst defensive performance in 2 weeks. Would not go as far as to say their worst post All-Star because they also had the, I think the Phoenix one and Boston, some rough defense there, but it's in the conversation, I guess. And then third and final takeaway before we get into the Q&A is just injury updates. I've already kind of spoiled them throughout the show, but Marcus is day to day, and the Lakers are hopeful he will play on Saturday versus Denver. Jackson recently had imaging on his back. There is no timetable for his return. Don't like hearing that. Jackson had been playing so well lately, had become such an important piece, especially as DeAndre Ayton insurance of if Ayton doesn't have it if Ayton doesn't have it in the first shift, JJ pulls him quickly and puts in Jackson. And now there's that is, insurance is just not there. And then also Maxey, JJ said this has been something he's been dealing with for a while and he's going to be out for a bit. So Lakers could be down to one playable center for the foreseeable future here. And that's like the one negative piece of news coming out of today. LeBron obviously back and played 33 minutes. And with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. First one, not first super chat, but Julian asks, do you put Luka in All-NBA first team? 100%. I mean, I was just talking about him in the MVP conversation. Luka should be a first team lock. I don't think he is right now, based on the consensus, and that's something I disagree with. I actually think if you voted right now, Luka would probably not make first team All-NBA. I think first team would be Shea, Jokic, Wemby, Cade, and maybe Jaylen Brown. Or I didn't mention Ant earlier. Ant's also in this mix, but I think Luka. I mean, he was top 5 in MVP, so in the straw poll. So I think he was 5th, right, behind Wemby and Cade. Maybe he gets the 5th spot, but I would say it feels like the consensus is lower on Luka. I mean, not even feels like it. The consensus is lower on Luka than they should be, and for me, 100% first team All-NBA guy. All right, into the super chats here. First one from Jay. Thank you for the super chat. Brown looked like he bought into this Draymond type of role tonight. Loved how the big three looked together. That's the blueprint, in my opinion. 100% agree. And I would like to we talked about this after last show of just sort of calming down the flames. And for example, I tweeted out a tweet critical of the Lakers defense, and then I get half the replies are like, well, see, this is what happens when LeBron returns and da-da-da. And then the other half are like attacking me saying, well, you're going at LeBron and this. And it's like, no, we could just talk about the Lakers defense without having any agendas or without, I did not specify any player. I thought it was team wide. I don't think anyone had like a great defensive performance tonight. Everybody had their highlight reel of plays where they didn't contain the ball, didn't rotate, didn't box out, all those things. So it's not a LeBron specific thing. I do think in general, as we've seen, the big three together, there is a bit of a limitation there. You add in Rui and DA, who can fluctuate motor-wise, particularly on the defensive end. And that's when you could see some of the the limitations there with those five in particular together. But I loved how LeBron played tonight. I think it took him a little bit to get into the game. Again, that like first quarter and a half was pretty quiet. I didn't mention the 4 turnovers, like, you know, the turnovers, some of the hit aheads and stuff. He can sometimes force a little bit of that, but I thought he did exactly what the Lakers needed him to do tonight. And I don't think it's going to be a seamless process moving forward, because it has not been a seamless process with the big three and their just, you know, assimilation together. There's been starts and stops and progress and steps back, and you know, it's not necessarily linear, but this was a step in the right direction. And I think that the Denver game is going to tell us a lot, because again, they've yet to beat one of these types of teams with all three together. And I think that's like the next step for them coming together before the playoffs. Kristen Lee, thank you for the super chat. Is it against the CBA for Mark Walters to hire Zealous to sit courtside for postseason to trash talk Luka? Seems to get him going. That's not the first time they've gotten into it with the trash talking. I'm glad you noted that. Yes, I believe. Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's never been a situation like that, right? So there's nothing to compare it to. I don't know. I mean, I think technically an owner of another team paying a player on another team for any service would be illegal. So maybe shouldn't put more thought into it than that. But you know, I don't know. A consultant, trash talking consultant, Montez Zealous is on the you know, Lakers traveling party. Yeah, I mean, maybe the playoffs. Like he did last year. I think it was in the playoffs or I forgot. He was randomly in the media room last year or maybe 2 years ago. I think it might have been last year. I remember he just was like in like regular clothes in the media room. I don't know why. I think he might have been there with his agent or something. But yeah, Lakers need to whatever he said. They need to find out what he said, get him to say it again on tape, and then play it whenever Luka needs a little boost. Jay, thank you again for the super chat. Jovan, they're drawing me back in again, man. But honestly, honestly, being hopeful just feels so much better than being angry every night. I especially agree with that last point, where this had just not been a fun team to cover and talk about at times this season, right? It felt like a lot of their wins, we like came away being more upset with the win or more like disappointed with the win. And then every time they had a big game, they pretty much got their ass kicked from like early November on. So like I thought, you know, into mid to late November, it was fun. And then starting, really, I think it was the turn of the calendar in December with like December 1st, the Suns loss. There was a real delineation in the Lakers play after that Suns loss. And it felt like that was a very demoralizing loss that for several months there, you know, a couple months at least, changed the trajectory of this team where, you know, they started 15-4, and after that Suns loss, they had an extended stretch of over 2 months of being a 500 team. And now they are finally, they were 15-4. They're now 41-25. So at the time they were plus 11 in terms of wins versus losses. They're now plus 16 in terms of wins versus losses. So they've righted the ship here. And from that point on, are now, 26-21. So it's nothing to write home about, but it is like trending in the right direction. And this final month here with Denver and Houston a couple times, OKC a couple times, Cleveland, Detroit, they got a bunch of big matchups to close out the season, a bunch of tests to show that they can compete and are among the best teams in the NBA. And I'm really excited for Saturday. I think Saturday is going to tell us a lot, because I may be in the minority. I'm not quite sure where everyone's at with Denver. I still think Denver's probably the second or third best team in the NBA. So I put for like the Lakers have had 2 statement wins. They were great wins against New York and Minnesota. If they can beat Denver, especially with how Denver's been playing lately, I think that is an even better win than both of those wins. It also gives them the tiebreaker against Denver, and it really pushes Denver down there and makes it more likely that they're the 6th seed. So I think it's a huge game on Saturday. And look, you could get drawn in, like that's part of being a fan. That's part of the fan experience. It's part of the fun of being a fan. I think I would like to see more statement wins and more sustained play to really be like, hey, this team is going to the second round. This team is going to the conference finals. Like I'm not there yet, but they have shown after 50 plus games of like not many signs of life against the best teams. They have had a couple of close losses to OKC and Denver. They've now beaten Minnesota and New York. They have some opportunities here with Denver and Houston. Would love for them to go 2-1 in that stretch. Beat Denver, split the 2 Houston games. That's a great stretch. Now you've also gone 4-1 against those 5, in those 5 statement games. Like that would be awesome. Even 3-2, I think would be a success. Even 2-3 technically is a success in my book, but I think the Lakers should aspire, for higher. So yeah, if they can go at least 1-2 or 2-1 over these next 3, I think that's a win and that's progress. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. Need false flag agents to shit talk Luka every game. Yeah, the only downside to this is like it really. It should. I don't think it will because these dudes are competitive and the Lakers will see Phoenix again, and I'm sure there'll be some trash talking from Dylan Brooks if he's back by that point. But I think if I'm anyone playing the Lakers coming up and I'm considering trash talking Luka, trying to get under his skin and his head, whatever, I see how tonight went and I'm like, I'm good. I'm not poking the bear. I'm good. But yeah, they do need that. And look, sometimes remember, it's not even just players. It can be like Luka will get into it with the refs if he feels like they didn't give him a certain call. He'll use that as motivation, and then he also uses the crowd as motivation, as we've seen plenty of times with his dynamic with fans. So Luka's great at finding motivation. He'll find motivation, and he'll continue to play great basketball. And then next one from Kristen Lee. Thank you for the super chat. Trevor said this week that Austin's on-off Lakers are better on defense, -5. Do you know the on-off defensively with the other starters post All-Star? I can pull that up quickly here. I will note on that front, Austin and Marcus have been the only 2 players on the team that the Lakers are better on both sides of the ball with them on the floor compared to off. I'll pull this up right here and share my screen. All right. So this is the on-off summary on the season. But if we go post All-Star, so for those who have never seen this before, I hope here I'll zoom in a little bit. Hopefully that this is better. So this is post All-Star break. So Lakers have played 57 minutes, 576 minutes. So this shows you how many minutes they played on the floor, how many minutes they've been off the floor, then the offensive rating on the floor versus the offensive rating when they're off the floor, the difference with that. So on the offensive end, you want it to be positive. This number shows you you want this number to be positive. On the defensive side, you want it to be negative. That means that they're defending better with that player on the floor. So you see with Luka, Lakers are 5 points per 100 possessions better with Luka on the floor offensively. Defensively, -15.9, so 15.9 points per 100 possessions better defensively. Right now, Luka's at 20.9 on-off differential. So Lakers are outscoring opponents by 11.3 points per 100 possessions with Luka on, which is a monster number. They're getting killed with Luka off the floor, -9.6. So I don't know the Shea and Jokic numbers off the top of my head. I have a better idea of their season-long numbers. But I assume that is going to put him right there with both of those guys, if not ahead of one or both of those guys. So that's another feather in his cap with his recent play. But if you're talking about Austin, so I guess we could go through it quickly here. So Luke right now is the leader offensively. Lakers are 15.5 points per 100 possessions better with him on. Jake is actually plus 13, which I did not expect. Timmy, very small sample size, only 26 minutes. So like we'll skip over that one. Marcus plus 11, Jackson plus 11, Luka plus 5, Vando plus 3.6, Maxi, small sample size. Even Vando's pretty small. There, LeBron minus 8 points per 100 possessions, Austin minus 10, Rui minus 13, DA minus 15.5. And then we get into the garbage time guys. So LeBron, Austin, Rui, and DA, the offense has been much better with those guys off of the floor. So there's been a lot more of these bench lineups. Although Marcus is always the one guy who, even now, Marcus is still, I guess he's technically second on the team in on-off differential behind only Jackson. But Marcus is always among the leaders. Now, if we go defensive, Luka, there's basically 16 points per 100 possessions better with him. Same with Jackson. Marcus, 15. Rui, 13. So that's really interesting. They've been much worse offensively with Rui, much better defensively. Then Austin minus 4.3, LeBron 4.3 points better, LeBron 2.8 points better. Then you get to DA 6.9 points worse, Kennard 8 points worse, which has been a trend with him. Lakers have been worse defensively with Kennard on the floor. Then LaRavia. So it's really interesting with LaRavia and Rui are switched. Like the Lakers are better offensively with LaRavia, worse defensively with him. They're better defensively with Rui, worse offensively with Rui. Then we get into the garbage time guys. And then overall guys who have made the biggest difference in terms of on-off. Jackson, 27 points per 100 possessions. Marcus, 26. Luka, 21. Luke Kennard, 7. Jake LaRavia, 0.5. Rui is exactly neutral. Then you get to LeBron, minus 5. Austin, minus 5.5. Maxi, we'll skip Maxi. Vando, minus 22. DA, minus 20. DA has been, there's a clear trend here of the Lakers have been worse on both ends of the floor by a decent margin with DA. So he's not been, he's playing better recently, but some of the lineup data with him has been pretty negative lately. But also, if you just want to look at simply one of the players on the floor, which can be useful sometimes, plus 25 with Jackson, plus 16.5 with Marcus, plus 11 with Luka, plus 10 with Luke Kennard, plus 6.5 with Jake, plus 6 with Rui, plus 5 with Austin, plus 4 with LeBron. And then among the rotation guys, DA minus 6, Vando minus 12. So among the top 10 rotation guys, DeAndre and Vando have been the least impactful / most harmful in terms of when they're on the floor from a results perspective. Now, there's a lot of noise in some of this, and you don't need to take it as the gospel, but it is informative. And once you get into like the 250 minute range, that's the sweet spot for JJ and the Lakers analytics staff. That's when some of these things start to be enough of a sample size. So like Vando, it's a very small sample size. He's only played 101 minutes, but DA nearly at the 250, and the Lakers have just been worse with him on the floor lately. But if we go by, you could see how much these things change though, because if you change this to like the last 4 games, then you see DA, now he's a plus 3.7. Overall, though, still a negative. That they've been better with him off the floor even in the last 4 games. So, but yeah, you can play around with the numbers, but I think we're at a decent sample size now with the post All-Star break sample. A lot of those guys are in the 200 plus minute range. Chuck Dangler, aka Fang Charlie, thank you for the super chat. And thank you for being a member for 5 months. Aiton chat to Wiki today about accountability was great. If he's locked in, we're good. It was so good to see Braun in his role. What does Helena say about your stash? LOL. I assume she doesn't like it. Well, that's not a nice assumption. What's wrong? What's wrong with my stash? What's everyone coming on my stash today? I'm just trying to show I can grow a little facial hair here. I don't think she really minds, but I will ask her after the show. She's going to be sleeping. She just worked till 11 p.m. She had a long day, but if she's watching, she could put it in the chat. Enark says, Ethan, what up, Ethan? It says stash is sick. BC with like kind of a backhanded observation here. I don't see any facial hair, just stubble. Look, this is. I can't really grow much more than this. It's the pros. I don't have to shave as much. The con is I will like permanently look like I'm like 21. I'm not going to repeat what you said, Blurry. I'm not getting this stream flagged. Chat's poking the bear. Connor Phillips, the Nuggets at their best are the second or maybe even best team in the NBA, but they are very inconsistent and their defense makes them vulnerable. If we play our best, we beat them most nights. I agreed with everything you said until the last part. Well, it depends on if the Nuggets are playing to their ceiling, right? Because I agree that the Nuggets are inconsistent. The slight pushback I would have here is that I think, and people do this to the Lakers too, and we need to acknowledge like there's always context within some of this. Like part of the Lakers' defensive struggles were the OG starters playing as much as they were, and that part of it's like just the Lakers makeup. But the Lakers have been better lately. They've been trending in the right direction defensively. They've been playing better defensive lineups, and so there's some context with that. The context with the Nuggets has been there's a huge difference when they have Aaron Gordon in the lineup, and their full strength starting group has a 105 defensive rating, which would be the second best defense in the NBA. So that starting group is just straight up one of the best line. I mean, I think it's a top 3 lineup in the NBA, and that might even be, I mean, maybe OKC's best lineup is better than that. That might be it. So I guess the point I would push back on here is if Denver is at full strength and locked in, to your point at the top, I think they are probably the second best team in the NBA. Now, are they always healthy? No, they've not been healthy all season. Are they always locked in? Also, no. I will note they always look pretty locked in against the Lakers. They like playing the Lakers. That gets the best out of Denver. But I will note, especially once they get Peyton Watson back, the starters plus Peyton Watson as like the 6th starter technically, I actually think that core is pretty good defensively because I mean they're starting Cam Johnson 6'8", Gordon 6'10", Jokic is 6'11". That's a pretty big front court. You add in Watson as a 6'9" athlete, like they have a pretty big front court when at full strength. The version we saw against the Lakers was different. They didn't have 3 of those guys, so they were a much smaller team. But I think it's night and day, especially when they have Watson and Gordon. Like those are just 2 really good defenders. Connor Phillips notes, that's what I'm saying. Our best game is better than 70% of the games I see the Nuggets play. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, sure. But I mean, I guess, are we talking like just pure ceiling here or what are we saying in terms of, because I mean, like the Lakers best, I would agree is also better than like the average Nuggets performance, but what about the Nuggets at their best if we're talking like best versus best? But who knows that if they don't get healthy, I'll say this, like they're susceptible to losing in round 1. They're susceptible to losing to the Lakers. Like I'm not saying they're this like unbeatable juggernaut. I just think when they just had 2 nail biters versus OKC. They have been trending, I think, generally in the right direction in terms of health, and like the lineup data has been pretty positive with their best groupings, and especially with Aaron Gordon, he makes a huge difference. Chuck Dangler asks, yeah, AG's back. He didn't play tonight because of the second out of a back-to-back. Connor Phillips says, best versus best, I think it's either an all-time shootout or an all-time rock fight that comes down to who makes clutch shots. Yeah, I mean, one thing with the Nuggets have been the best offense in the NBA all season. So I honestly view them as like a better version of the Lakers, where I think they've been better offensively than the Lakers all season. Even without Jokic, they were still a machine offensively with Murray and Watson and like Spencer Jones stepping up, and they've just been a machine. But then their best lineups, their primary projected lineups, assuming they get healthy, have been better than the Lakers' primary projected lineups defensively. That's like the distinction there of, I think, the combination of, like, if you just look at, like, let's say the top 8 or 9 in the rotation, I think Gordon, Watson, Brown is better than Smart. I mean, I don't even put Vando in the top 8. It's like Smart, Luka, Jackson. Like, I don't know who we say, like, who are we saying here are like the Lakers, like 3 impact defenders compared to like Gordon, Watson, Brown. I think I just saw Brown defend KD really well in Denver 2 nights ago. Like I think it's a little different. Oh, but this is not Nuggets post game. So let's move on to different subject here. OMG, hey Jovan, missed today's game, but always good to listen to the review from you. Saw highlights and stats. The minutes played by starters are playoff-ish. Yeah, the starter. So that's a good point in terms of the rotation tonight. All 5 starters played 33 plus minutes. 4 of them played 37 plus minutes. So JJ just really. He said, "Hey, we got a game and a half until Denver. We're gonna ride the starters tonight. We're gonna get this win." Also, part of it was like the Lakers were. There was the moment where they could have pulled the starters with 3 minutes left or a little bit more after Chicago called timeout. Luka was trying to get the 50-point triple double, which I think is totally fair. He created. He got downhill, got fouled, went to the free throw line, made the free throws. Then he created the look to Rui. Rui missed it, and then there was like a couple more possessions, and then JJ was like, "I'm pulling it. I'm bringing in the rest of the bench guys." Although technically, I forgot a couple guys stayed out there. It was only let's see who subbed out. Jake came in for LeBron. No, I'm wrong. Yeah, Jake came in for LeBron, and Kennard came in for Luka. So they left the rest of the starters in there. Jeremy, what's up, Jeremy? Been a minute. Hey, JB, mate from Oz, what's up? Your boy says we haven't talked about enough narratives tonight. I need more negativity. No negativity. We're off that tonight. Jay notes, Braun as a screener is just so good, man. Him and AR had a lot of nice middle ball screens. I agree. I think that's perfect way to use both of them. Julian asks, do you think Luka will score 40 more points, big W against Nuggets? It's a good question. He's averaging 40 over the past 4 games. And he's had 240 plus 44, 35, 31. He's played Denver. Last game in Denver, he had 27. And then the one earlier in the season, he had 38. I'll say high 30. Like, I think he's I'll say like 37 to 39. I think he's in the 37 to 39 range against Denver. Jeremy asked, do you think we have any chance against Denver? I do. I think the Lakers have a chance. I think they're going to enter as underdogs, and they'll especially if you look at the whatever the line is for the game. I assume Denver will be favored by. Lakers were underdogs against the Knicks. They were underdogs against the Timberwolves. Like, they've not gotten some of the respect lately in terms of how they've fared, or just sort of the respect against some of these teams. So I would say Denver's probably going to enter the game as the favorites, but I would also say another factor here will be, I think a big loss in this matchup is like assuming Gordon's back, Cam Johnson's back, Spencer Jones is back, which all those guys have been back other than Gordon missing tonight. I think the Lakers are really going to miss Jackson Hayes and Maxi Kleber. And then there's also the X factor of Marcus Smart. I think if it seems like Jackson and Maxi are going to miss on Saturday based on what JJ said tonight, if Marcus is out too, I think that's a little bit too much to overcome from a depth perspective. I don't think you could just play 7 guys like the Lakers did tonight, and especially 7 guys who like a couple. I forgot earlier when I was talking about the Lakers versus Nuggets defense. I'd throw Jake in there too. So like Marcus, Jake, and Luka or Austin or LeBron. You pick whoever you want to be like the other third guy in that group. But it's just, I don't think it's the same as Denver's top defenders. But I say a lot to say, I think the Lakers have a real shot, especially with how they've been playing lately. Like, they're rolling. They've won 4 in a row. They've won 7 of 8. They just beat Minnesota and New York. I think the one thing that could potentially undo them here is no Marcus, I think, really compromises the defense, especially as Murray isn't a great matchup for him because I think Murray's too shifty and quick for him. And I think that's been like the one. I think if I was saying like what's Marcus's biggest defensive weakness, I would say it's like the more quick, shifty guys. He just doesn't have the foot speed anymore to really compete with them. But he's still probably their best. Like it's Austin has actually done a decent job against Murray. Like I don't think you want to put him as the primary guy for the entire night, but you can kind of mix up the matchups there. But yeah, I mean, I think it partly comes down to though, like if there's no Jackson, no Maxey, and potentially no Marcus, that's just a lot of bodies, especially defensive bodies from that matchup that I think it would impact LA. But Luka's, as I've said, playing as well as anybody right now. Austin is rolling. LeBron just came back and had a good game. DA's been playing his best basketball of the season, excuse me. Like I would say DA might end up being the X factor for that game. Like if they get this type of performance that he's had the last few games against Denver, that could swing it in LA's favor. If he plays the way, he did not have he had a bad first half against Denver in the first matchup. He had a bad first shift against Denver in the second matchup. So I don't like how he has played against Denver up to this point in the season. We've also not seen him beyond a half and then like half of a quarter up to this point. So we don't have like a full game sample size. But DA is also another swing factor here of it has felt like those Denver matchups have been pretty big moments that he has not really fared well in. And he has a chance to right that on Saturday. So yeah, for sure, I think the Lakers have a chance. Keon Park, playoff Rui needs to guard Jokic. Yeah, I mean, I really hope they do not start the OG starters. I think that lineup will lose their minutes. To be completely honest, like I'm still not. I know they won tonight their minutes, but it was against the Bulls. I just think against the real opponent, it's going to be different. But Rui has defended Jokic well over the last, dating back to the 2023 Western Conference Finals. And I think Rui's best strength as a defender is his post defense. So I don't think he's going to shut him down, but the Lakers have been able to make his life difficult. And we saw 9 turnovers. I mean, he got the triple double. He did have the 2 big baskets late to ice the game, but he also had 9 turnovers. And this is not the first time the Lakers have made him less efficient compared to, his normal production. Going about 10 more minutes here until the 1:30 mark. Elevated radio. I love when we have actual ball movement. I love it too. And I think it's been trending in the right direction. I thought it continued tonight. And when the Lakers are snapping the ball around, they're just so difficult to guard. And that to me, like coming into tonight, they were 5th in offense and 15th in defense. That to me is the blueprint moving forward with this group for the rest of the season. And then obviously in the summer, you want to bolster the defensive side. But if they can be a top 5 offense and a top 15 defense, they're going to be a really difficult playoff out. Kristen Lee notes Luka's number 2 with 1 over Jokic in 30-point triple doubles, and he's 4 years younger than Jokic. I think they're technically tied after tonight because Jokic had a 30-20 triple double. So I think he tied Luka, but I don't think the tie is going to last long. Luka, to your point, 4 years younger, already tied with Jokic. He's going to continue, he's going to finish number 1, I think, by like a decent margin. So just incredible stuff from Luka. And he's got I think today was his 13th 40 plus point game as a Laker, which is, he's already like, I think 9th on the list, 9th or 10th on the all-time Lakers list. AD had 15 games of 40 plus as a Laker. So he's right on AD's heels. I would assume he's going to at least match, if not, pass AD by the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, but 10 years from now, when we're looking back on, I assume Luka will still be playing, but like when we're looking back on where he's at in a lot of these all-time statistics and categories and different thresholds and marks and stuff, like he's going to be have quite the resume there. All good, Kristen. These things are constantly updating, but I think Luka will pass him, permanently pass him. Jay notes up, my guess is LA is a small -1 favorite over Denver. They were 3.5 dogs in Denver last week. We'll get 3 to 4 points for home court, I think. 3.5 dogs in Denver, but that was without Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, Jones, and Watson. I think Gordon and Johnson and Jones being back will swing that. Like, I mean, they were without 2 starters, and their 3rd and 4th best player. So, and I'm considering Watson their 4th best player. He's been their 4th best player this season. So I think Denver's healthier now and in better shape in the front court. So I think that might offset it. So I would actually, if I'm predicting the line, I think Denver's probably either a -2.5 or a -3.5 favorite, I would guess. But we'll circle back on this after the game on Saturday. Jeremy asked, no one's asked Luka. Like, it's not really our business, to be completely honest. Like, I know there's a lot of intrigue right now, and you had TMZ paparazzi outside of his house in Manhattan Beach, which is just like not the move at all. That's just, what are we doing? Like, Luka is not devastated at his bachelor pad. Like, come on, like what are we doing here? That was ridiculous. But it's not like the only thing to ask him about would be the human interest element of like, what's it, how difficult is it being away from your daughters and not, being able to see them over the last few months. But even that, like, he put out a statement to ESPN and The Athletic about it already and how difficult it is. So I feel like he would probably just say, like, I put out a statement or rehash similar sentiments from that statement. So this is one of those things where it's a little bit, I mean, I guess there's a custody battle going on. So there's like a legal element to it technically, but I think it'd be different if this was like, if there was an actual like legal thing with stakes of like jail or like, a more serious matter where that's the type of off court thing when it becomes like, okay, you have to address this because the player could serve jail time or could get suspended, or then there's the whole thing about like, should the team suspend them or do they just let them keep playing? And like, there's always the morality component to it. This is not that situation whatsoever. So he has not addressed it publicly other than the statement he put out. And I don't anticipate him, I mean, maybe he like alludes to it and that would be more on him, but no one's going to ask him about that just because it's not like, that's something that is private and personal. And I know there's a lot of interest in it right now. And it of course is an interesting wrinkle in his life and his season. And like, I get the intrigue from the outside, but ultimately, like, this is a private matter that he needs to solve with, his, like the parties that need to solve the situation. So no, he has not touched on it. Oh, so Sarah notes he did get asked about it in Slovenian, but it was a vague answer. Okay, so I stand corrected on that. I mean, I knew he was asked a question in Slovenian. I didn't know the context of that question. But good correction there from Sarah. Thank you. But no one's asked him it in English. We'll say that. Then Connor Phillips asked, what's your opinion on coaches' challenges? Do you like how they currently, or should there be more or less? I guess I think you should be able to keep going until you lose one. I think, so I think in general, they have a dilemma here with the challenges in terms of just, it's got to be a quicker process. Like, within 2 times, like watching a certain, either the primary angle or a primary angle plus a secondary angle, we know what the correct call is, right? And then, they have the general rule of, if it's not definitive enough to overturn the call, you just keep the current call. So even if it's like a block charge, bang, bang sequence, and it's like a really close block charge call, more often than not, you just go with the original call because that is what they're trained to do. That's in the rule book. So I think in general, the review process should be trimmed down considerably. And like, these things should not take more than 30 to 45 seconds. And to their credit, I've noticed there have been some reviews this year that have been like pretty short and have been just a quicker overall process. Still, it's not the most common outcome here, and they will review and review and review. And then it often turns into like basically just a TV timeout. So that's my like my macro takeaways. I think in general, these got to be shorter. Now, in terms of the coaches' challenges, I think you should. I go back and forth in terms of like you say, keep going till you lose one. The only thing with that is like I don't think a coach should be challenging like 8 calls. I think at some point you got to just like let the refs do their job, for better or worse. And I think maybe what I'd maybe be okay with a rule where if you get the first 2 right, you get your 2 standard ones correct, you get a third one. So obviously if you get the first one wrong, you don't have a challenge the rest of the way. So you get penalized for getting one wrong, and you also lose the timeout. I would like either some sort of benefit to, if you feel like you've been jobbed on a couple of these calls, you challenge both of them, you get them right, you get you get an extra timeout or you get an extra challenge. That to me, I think would be a fair way of doing it. So I'm okay with the current system. I do kind of think if you challenge something early, I do think you should get ideally like 1 per half. And maybe if you challenge one early and screw that up, you don't get another challenge for the rest of the half, but you still get a challenge in the second half. I don't love the like, if you challenge something, because sometimes there'll even be like debatable ones where they don't overturn it or they rule something that you don't agree with, or that like maybe the consensus doesn't agree with. And it's like, well, because they deemed that this was not you're not overturning it. Now you just lost all your challenges. And that's, I think, a little unfair. So I think I would potentially open it up to, in the first half, if you miss your challenge, then you can't use it again. Maybe even until like the 4th quarter. I don't know, like some sort of penalty, but you don't lose it entirely. But then also the flip side is if you use both challenges and win both, you should get something positive added on, I think. I just don't, I think that the downside would be, I'm just envisioning like a close game here where let's just say like both coaches got both challenges right. And then you're just going on and like every possession's being challenged. And that would just be a terrible product and like viewing experience, right? Like you don't want to be dealing with that. So I think there's got to be a limit to how much you can challenge ultimately. But I think if you get both right, you should get some extra challenge, extra timeout, whatever, to at least be like, hey, the refs are like, hey, we kind of screwed those 2 up. Here's an extra timeout. Here's the extra challenge. Something like along those lines. Sarah notes they just asked him about personal issues, so I guess maybe it wasn't as specific. But I mean, of course, we know when he's asking him about personal issues what that is alluding to. Hans De Leon, hey, Jovan, are there other NBA beat writers who do this to their teams? So I assume you're talking about like who cover the team through podcast form. There are other people who have podcasts. I would say, to my knowledge, and like beat writer is relative in terms of like, I think the more technical definition of an NBA beat writer, obviously you got to write, and I no longer write, but it's also someone who travels. I think by nature, like there's the traditional, like typical beat writer is someone who not only covers the home games, but is on the road and is going to, like the Lakers beat has always basically been, you go to all 82 games. Some other teams or markets, they don't travel as much. And it's really expensive to travel. Like I've learned it this year traveling on my own to a few games, but travel easily for, like, if you're going to all 41 games, you're talking about 30 to 40 grand. It's basically, some of the games are going to be a little, like, you could do from, us people in LA, I could fly up to San Francisco for a Warriors game, day of, stay the night in a hotel, fly back the next day. And like, that's a relatively cheap trip, but the flights across the country are very expensive. You add in the hotels, you like Grammy trip, you're on the road you have 14 days of hotel, like 8 different cities you're in, thinking about all the hotels and connecting flights and all that stuff. It's like, it adds up pretty quickly. So it's very expensive to travel, but technically I would say like travel is supposed to be a part of being a beat writer. Now, as far as people, I realize I apologize. I went off on a tangent there, just kind of into some of the semantics here. There are definitely people who have podcasts. I don't think there's anyone who does it the way that I do it necessarily. And like, even people who podcast after games, most of the time it's like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I typically go hour and a half, 2 hours. So I would say I have one of the longer post-game shows. And I try to do as much. I think I do more Q&A than most people. But I try to carve out my own lane with this. That there are definitely, I don't want to act like I'm the only person who has a podcast who covers a team, because that's obviously not true in the Lakers space, and it's not true in every team space. But in terms of being like a beat writer, at the time, like I was doing something unique where every single night I was writing a story and going live and then editing that and like uploading it. And I was basically killing myself staying up till 4 or 5 a.m. Now I don't have to do that anymore because I don't have to write. But I don't, there are beat writers who have podcasts, but it's more so like maybe once a week, twice a week during the day, they record something, or maybe they do like a quick 15, 20 minute post-game show, not to what I was doing. And that's ultimately why I decided to stop being a beat writer. Like I've had a better work-life balance. I've stayed home a lot more, but also I've had more time to dig into the show. And like, this has been the thing I've been most passionate about and just fallen in love with. So this has been the thing I've really wanted to focus on and build out. Your boy asked, what's my baseball team? My baseball team is the Dodgers, but like, I don't want to lie and say I'm like some giant diehard Dodgers fan. I've always been a basketball guy. Like since I was 8, I've always been someone with a few interests. I've never been some people have like 15 interests. I've never been that person. I've always had like 2 or 3 things I'm obsessed with at a given time. From the time I was 8 on, it was basketball, specifically NBA. So even like looking at, college basketball or whatever, like I've just always been, or WNBA, like I've always been NBA. I'm NBA and I'm obsessed with NBA, and like I live and breathe NBA basketball. So I would even take it like a step further and be like directly, specifically NBA, but Dodgers. All right, I've gone over a little bit, so we'll go a few more minutes. CV Novi notes Mike Trudell. Yeah, so Mike is he doesn't have the podcast anymore, but with Laker Film Room. But like even that is more of a daily podcast than a nightly post game. But you could throw Mike in there as well. Sarah, not a lot of independent podcasters these days. It's rare. Yeah, I will note, like, one of the cool things for me, and one of the things I'm really proud of, and I don't share these things often, but now that we're kind of on the topic, like basically everyone, like I know all the media who are at the games, and pretty much there are some independent outlets, but to my knowledge, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, like I'm the only person there that's like working for myself and has my own company entirely on my own, and is like, like it says Buha's block on my badge. It doesn't say, another company or organization or whatever. So like, that's been pretty cool to be like, in some ways, like I'm at the games and credentialed just by being me. Right. And a lot of people, it's like you're credentialed or at these things because of the organization or the outlet that you work for. So that's been something I've been proud about this year. Connor asked, did you see the paparazzi pics Sarah got of you at the game? She posted. I've not seen it yet, but game nights are pretty crazy, but I will check. I'll check it. Hans asked if the refs get a call 60 times, should they be suspended? Depends on the ref. I will say depends on the ref. Tali Khalifa, hey Jovan, do you think DA's recent resurgence can be extrapolated to the playoffs? Do you have faith that he can fare well against Denver and Houston soon? I think it can be. I would just say that we have enough of a sample size with him that like I don't want to just assume that. I think for me, he's got to give me a larger sample size of consistency to like fully buy back in and fully trust it, because he has had, I mean, we could go back to the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, and he'll have like games here and there, but then he'll also have some of the other performances he's had. Like I think about the Houston game on Christmas. I think about the Detroit game. I don't think he played well in either Denver matchup, albeit one was only a shift, but like I thought he was disappointing in those. One of the San Antonio games, I thought he was disappointing. We could go through the list. The Boston game, I actually think both Boston games, Neemias Queta outplayed him. Just think like, so he has a sample, like on the, like if you look at his numbers on the totality of the season, he's obviously been productive and has like, he's been worth every dollar. No question about it, but he's ultimately going to be judged, and what's ultimately going to determine, I think, his fit and future with the team is like how he performs in the biggest games and the biggest moments. I don't think he performed well recently in those big games and moments until this recent shift, especially against New York and Minnesota. So he's got to keep it going against Denver and Houston. I think he can. Will he? I'd be lying to you if I could say it with any confidence, right? But doesn't mean he can't, and doesn't mean he won't. I'm just saying I have fallen for it before and gotten burned by it multiple times this season. So I'm naturally at this point in more of like a defensive, conservative crouch with this whole situation. But I mean, I would say the first time he plays well against Denver will be the first time he plays well against Denver. And so it's a big test for him. I appreciate all the love in the chat. I do appreciate it. Sean, do you collect basketball cards? I used to be obsessed with basketball cards. Then I stopped probably like going into high school. I probably collected from like 4th grade through 8th grade. And then I still have all the cards, especially like the jersey cards and autograph cards and stuff. But my son has gotten into it a little bit. He's more into like Pokemon cards, but I've tried to sprinkle in some basketball cards for him. And no shade at anybody. No shade at anybody. Especially not Trevor. Trevor's my guy. So just want to be clear about that. I see no shade at, this is a no shade zone. And then Sean, sorry, I see you now followed up with the super chat. Appreciate it. Tali Khalifa says, yes, sir. Props to you, Jovan. Credit for all the hard work. Love to see it. Thank you. And your boy says it's okay to flex. King owns his masters. Yes, I do own my masters. But Civic Citizen, how about every challenge you get right after 3 corrections, the refs lose their pay for the day? That's interesting. All right. I'm going to wrap here, though. I appreciate you all for rocking with me for over an hour and a half. I'll be back. We're going a little bit later tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. We moved the show from typical 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific. So we'll be going live on Lakers Collective with Trevor and Jason at that time. Then Saturday, huge matchup for the Lakers. One of their biggest games of the season will determine the head-to-head tiebreaker with Denver. Will either cement's a strong word, but keep the Lakers in that 3 mix or push them down more into the 5-6 mix. And it's going to change every day, every game, but it's a huge one against Denver and the type of statement game that I think is at an even higher level than Minnesota and New York. So excited about that one. That's going to be one of the biggest games of the season again. But appreciate you all. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow on Lakers Collective, Saturday on here. I'll talk to you all then. Shout out to the late night gang. Shout out to the chat. Appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your evening/morning and talk to you all soon.